hope you guys really enjoy this because this is something that I'm kind of passionate about. And you know, I think when I was teaching grad school, it was such an important thing for me to have your ideas presented in a way that was readable, understandable, that I took a full letter grade off for grammatical problems and spelling and other things like that. It's something that's very important to me as somebody who, whether you create an idea or you're taking something else and you create documentation for it, your name's on it. Right, it's very important that that stuff is done well. So, we're going to talk a little bit about writing today. Hopefully it's going to be kind of fun. This is my hope, sorry. Hopefully we'll be able to look at some common mistakes and ways to avoid them. Let's see, some takeaways. Hopefully you'll get some tips on improving your own writing. That would be great for me, as you guys have that. A drive to improve your own writing, and then I'm going to give you at the end a list of sources that you can use.
You're in the camera.
I'll give you a list of sources you can use to improve your own writing. I also will be giving away these. This is one of my new favorites. It's called the Elements of Fucking Style, and it is a fun look at this book, which is a classic for writers, using much more colorful examples and metaphors. So, I don't know how exactly we're going to do for giving these away yet.
I just want to look at it.
You want to look at it? There's nice inscriptions in each one. It took some time for that. So.
Audience participation.
Yeah, we'll figure something out. All right. What it's not going to be, we're not going to make this English 101. We're not going to do a big teardown of the English language. That's not really productive, really. Hopefully not sleepy time. After the last talk, I think everybody's woken up now from all the barbecue. So, one caveat. This presentation is based on American English, right? So, for America, right? We're going to talk about guns. We're going to talk about the economy, Main Street. It's going to be awesome.
Maverick presentation.
Right. So, that's the one caveat. So, if it's not your native language, some of the things may be a little bit foreign to you. Who here loves writing? Show of hands. A few people? Yeah? Why do you love writing? Tell me.
I enjoy trying to make something understandable for others.
I like that. What about you?
It's just a great way to share information.
Okay. All right. Who here loves rewriting?
Yeah.
Is that what that says? Yep. Okay. James, tell me why you love rewriting.
It's the part where you get to refine your ideas and actually come across with the message. It's not just a spew of thoughts that have some sort of relation to an idea, but it's the point where you get to consolidate that and really get the message together that makes your point.
Okay. Who here hates writing? Okay. Tell me why you hate writing. Somebody raise your hand. Tell me why you hate writing.
Because I can't convert it from geek to Crete.
Ah, okay. That's a really good one. Who else? Somebody in the back? Yeah?
I tend to rewrite so much.
Oh, you get stuck in that.
And then I get so tired that I let mistakes through.
Got it.
It comes back to haunt.
Yep. So I'll tell you that I don't like writing. I do love rewriting. So I'm one of the guys that I can do a brain dump. In fact, when I write my column for the journal, it's a 750-word target. I typically will do a brain dump in an afternoon and dump out 1,000 words in about an hour. I just blank page, topic, write. And I don't edit it, I don't, whatever. That's okay, but what I really love doing is coming back, letting it fester and kind of, stew for a week, coming back, and then fixing it and making it something that works and cutting that extra stuff down to make a really good message. So I modified a simple writing guideline for you. This is based on George Orwell, simplified by Seth Godin, if you know who Seth Godin is, and then me. So the first thing is, you don't need cliches. You probably use them in your writing more than you want to admit, right? What's a common cliche you've seen in writing? Somebody give me one.
That dog won't hunt.
That dog won't hunt. God, if I see that in some writing, somebody's going to
I've seen it.
You've seen it?
I've
Oh,
seen
great. Okay.
It's Greek to me.
What's that?
It's Greek to me.
It's Greek to me. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of cliches that. The thing about cliches is that they kind of cheapen your writing, right? You can come up with a way to create an analogy that 50 million other people haven't said already. Just get a little bit creative. Take the cliches out. Think about a different way to say it. Don't use a long word where a short one will do. This is the geek speak problem, right? And it's not just because there's long technical words. You know, if I'm writing something about medicine, there's going to be some long words in that thing, right? But we'll talk about later on some things, mainly because of a tool that we sometimes misuse. We don't need to use big words. And the example that I'll give you is President Lincoln's second inaugural speech only had 700 and some odd words, and 500 of those were one-syllable words. And another 135 were two syllables. Most people revere him as a pretty respected man and a good communicator. It's about getting the ideas across. You have to write at a 6th grade level. Doesn't mean that if someone is in the industry, use an advanced term, encryption. We have to use it. We're not going to spend pages explaining what encryption is. However, we shouldn't use some of the crazier words that you'll find, and I have some examples a little bit later on. Next one, if it's possible to cut a word out, always cut it. Read the sentence, take a word out, does it still make sense? Always cut it. That's what, so in the trick that I see where this is kind of a problem is we were trained as high school and college people to work towards a page limit, right? You have to turn in at least a 5-page paper. So how many of us have sat there late in the afternoon or maybe early in the morning, got 4.5 pages, like, fuck, what else can I already made except the biggest font I can use, I already made the margins that size, you know, space as far as it can, I got the kerning going. We've all done that, right? But the real magic to being a good communicator and a good writer is writing with fewer words. So William Zinsser, who wrote this book, and I'll leave these up here afterwards, you guys can look at them. This one is one of my favorites. It's called On Writing Well. He has an exercise where he has his students go out and write a 10-page paper. He says, great, now take the same paper and make it 5 pages. First they bitch and moan, but then they're able to do it. Then he says, okay, one more time, 3 pages. So much fluff writing, so many words that aren't necessary are put into our writing. There's so much we can take out. Next one, prefer active voice over passive, which means write in the now. Has anybody seen that little squiggly thing in Word, the green squiggly, and it says passive voice?
Question.
Yeah.
Do they use the same tricks going from 10 to 5 by reducing the margins and reducing the space?
Making it so it's a little tiny? No, they, it is really editing it down, but that's not funny. So, active over passive voice.
That's a hard one.
The beer was drunk by Branden. Branden's having a
still
drink.
drinking.
Branden drinks beer. Usually when you see a past tense, was, were, and then a verb right after it, that means you're talking in passive voice. Passive voice, oh, I have white voice. Sweet. It's not going to be on camera, but I'll just talk and we'll pretend like it's on camera, okay?
Look, sure, between the chair and the screen.
Okay. Oh, right here?
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, we'll do it. Okay. Normally, active voice, you have a subject, you have a verb, and you have an object, right? Somebody does something. Branden drinks beer, right? Subject, verb, object. This is active voice. Passive voice does this backwards. We're talking about what somebody did something to, and then we say who it was at the end. The barbecue was enjoyed by James. James likes barbecue. James enjoyed the barbecue, right? So not only one thing you should notice there is the sentences are shorter, but we're also talking about actions as they're happening right in front of us, right? That will make your writing much more powerful. I tend to think that passive voice sounds very pretentious. So if you're reading a paragraph and it kind of sounds like you got the monocle in and you're looking down at everybody below you and you're trying to, that's where the real challenge is. And you want your writing to be direct. A great example of that is, what's the first book everybody read? Was that, See Jane Run, right? See Jane Run. Running was not done by Jane. Jane ran, right? Next one, never use a foreign phrase, scientific word, jargon, if you can think of an everyday English equivalent. That's kind of hard in this industry, and I totally understand that because a lot of what we write has to do with technical stuff, right, that geek speak. But if there is a way to do it, do it. You will widen your audience. I think the challenge that we have is that people try to use big words to sound smart. Again, the same thing before where I have so many pages, I have to hit that number of pages, and I've already used every small word through the thesaurus thing to try to make a bigger word and add that space too, right? If it's hard to read, people don't want to read it. Next one. It's better to be interesting than follow any of these rules, right? There's always that in there. It's okay to break the rules if you know what you're doing and you want to be interesting in your writing. Next.
Brandon, I was taught in school also to, like a 7th rule, try and keep your sentences short instead of really long sentences where you string together a couple of ideas.
Yep.
Keep them short, easier to read.
Yep. You don't have to make it choppy, but if you're reading a sentence and you haven't taken a breath in a little bit, and you're having to take a breath in the middle of the sentence, and there's not a comma there to help you out, maybe it's time to think about shortening it up a little bit. Next. I put this in here because I really truly believe this now. People judge books by their covers. They will judge you too by what you write. Your name is on it. And now that we have great tools like Google, it's always out there. Right? Anybody here a developer? When you go back and look at code that you wrote 10 years ago, what do you think?
I can still read it.
Yeah, but do you think, like, what the hell was I thinking? I mean, this is, when I was a developer, I would go back and look at code that I wrote and say, I'm surprised this even compiles. I can't believe this even works. Because you progress along so far, you tend not to look back. You say, look at this really cool stuff I'm doing today. But with stuff like Google, all that old stuff is still there. It's got your name on it. So people will judge you by what you write. People do judge books by their cover. All right. I have one mission today. Besides drinking a beer. One mission, okay? Is to get you two missions. To get you not to do what I'm about to show you, okay? If you don't do what I'm about to show you, I win. And I only care about me winning, but I win. You ready? Okay. You do not mean vendor agnostic. How many times have we heard this, usually from a sales pitch or in a marketing document? Vendor agnostic. Let's look at the definition. An agnostic is a person who believes that nothing is known or can be known of the existence or nature of God or anything beyond material phenomena. A person who claims neither faith nor disbelief in God. How does that relate to which word processor I'm going to use? Okay? Maybe you don't believe vendors exist?
Yes.
I think a lot of people don't believe vendors exist, right? We see the sales guys like, I don't know what you're selling me, but I don't really see it. Okay? Or maybe the more reality is at least you don't acknowledge one way or the other if you believe they exist. Okay? So what do you mean?
Vendor neutral.
Vendor neutral.
Yeah.
Vendor neutral. Neutral, not helping or supporting either of two opposing sides. Unbiased. Disinterested. That's the one we tend to use, especially in consulting speak, right? If you're a consultant, you say, I don't prefer one vendor over another. I don't care which SIM tool you have, I can help you fix any of those things, right? Vendor neutral, I'm disinterested. Neutral modifies vendor, describes your lack of bias towards any one vendor. And again, I'd be happy, man, if I never saw it in another document. Consider the source if you do see it. What are they trying to say? Did somebody just throw that in there because they couldn't think of a better term? This is what I mean by people judge books by their cover, because, actually, let me ask this other question. Anybody here a photographer? When you look at a piece of art, what do you do?
Analyze.
Right, so I'm ruining you guys, just so you know. By teaching you this, I'm going to ruin it, because every time you start reading a document now, you're going to look at it and say, why is he using passive voice? Why is he doing this? Why does he say vendor agnostic? It will help you long term, but this does ruin you guys a little bit. Words mean things. So here's some common goofs that we'll talk about here. I have 15 minutes left?
Correct.
Okay. It's and it's. So this is fun for me because it doesn't sound any different, right? It's and it's. It's IT apostrophe S and it's. This one is a contraction that means it is. This is the possessive. So if you want any trick, always leave it out. It's easier to make that mistake than leaving it in and looking like you're a goofus, right? There, and there. It's another one, right? This is a contraction that means they are. This is possessive. This one is a direction. They are taking their iPads over there. Okay? Your and your. This one was, this goof was made famous, I'm dating myself, and also my poor taste in television, by Friends.
Yeah.
When what's her name? Jennifer Aniston's character, Rachel, wrote the note to Ross, the 18-page, front and back, right? Wrote the long note. Y-O-U apostrophe R-E means you are. It's a contraction. Y-R-U-R means your. Okay? If I'm talking, you're taking your iPad. You're taking your iPad over there, right? Effect and affect.
That's my pitfall.
Effect is cause and effect. So you think about it did something and then something happens. Affect means I'm doing something to change a behavior. I can affect the outcome of an election by voting for a bunch of people that have already died. Right? That will have the effect of distrust in the system.
Or if you're from Chicago, a bunch of people who've already died affect the outcome of an election.
Exactly. There you go. This word is lose. This word is loose. Okay? You can lose things. You can't loose things. You can loosen the laces on your shoes. You can also lose the laces on your shoes, but you can't loose the laces on your shoes. Okay? This one for this guy, right? Could of and could have. I could have gone down to the store. That's the contraction meaning could have. This is not something that is found in the English language. Could of. It's could have. Now let's talk about some of these word clusters. These are the things that you can delete from your writing. And yes, it's shorter, but it's more concise and it doesn't sound so pretentious. Things like, I might add. You wrote the document. Write it. People know. Your name's on it. It's important to note that. Just make it important. Talk about the outcome. Your hair will catch on fire. Okay. Don't make it important to note that, do these bad things. Just say, do it, and your hair catches on fire. It should be pointed out. If you're also following along, a lot of these are passive voice. Okay? It should be noted that. Note it. It is recommended that. We see that in a lot of consulting documents, don't we? It is recommended that you take these 4 or 5 actions to secure infrastructure. Do this, be safe. Okay? Due to the fact that. I love that one because it comes up everywhere. And then it is understood that. So again, there's also one commonality. You see one commonality between most of these? What's the one word you see in common for most of these? This word, right here. That's another word you can also eliminate from a lot of sentences. If you see a sentence that has that word in it, you see I'm saying it right now, if it has that word in it, try eliminating it and see what it does. The word very is another one, right, as an adverb. If it's very good, just say it's awesome, right? Remove the word very, come up with a better word. Next, tools of the trade. A good dictionary. Most of it's built into a lot of operating systems now. I prefer the Oxford American. This is my good dictionary. If I have a question about a word and want to know what it means before I write it down, check this first. You save yourself a lot of time. Books, on writing or not on writing, just read. This one is a great one called The Book on Writing by Paula Rock for you Dallas people. She was a Dallas Morning News writer. She goes through a lot of the things that I'm talking about in a lot more detail, and including the common goofs. There's a whole section on common goofs and things in here, which is great. This book is a fantastic, it's called The Elements of Style. It's not really as good as this book. But this is the old kind of de facto book, The Elements of Style. This book is Stephen King's book called On Writing. The first third is a kind of a biography. The middle third talks about character development, and the last third is a little bit more about writing and different things that happen in his life. I found it very interesting, and I hope you would too. And these last ones are some of my favorite for kids. There's adult books apparently that have this as well, but this one is what commas really do, or why commas really do make a difference. It's called Eat, Shoots, and Leaves, and it does it with pictures. So, for example, every day, comma, Anthony turns, comma, slides, comma, and swings. Right? He turns, he slides, and he swings. Every day, comma, Anthony turns, slides, and swings. He's turning, slides, and swings. It's very helpful. This one, a style book. It's called the Chicago Manual of Style. Yes, it is big. I've read probably half of it. A lot of it's good for reference. But this will tell you those things. If you're reading a sentence, or you're writing a sentence, you're not sure, how do I format this list? Do I put semicolons here? Do I put commas here? How do I do this? Do I put a period at the end of this? This will tell you. What one tool did you not hear me mention?
Thesaurus.
Thesaurus.
Yeah.
This one. All right, so this is my soapbox. I built it over here. You can't see it, but this is not a right. This is a privilege. this book, okay? Not a right, okay? It is a gift. Use a simple word where you can. Don't find the most complex word. For example, instead of, if I'm saying we're fighting, don't say persecute or prosecute. That's the one I just put right here. Don't use that word. So here's some examples. Numerous. We see that in a lot of tech documents. The word you mean is many, right? Initial. Upon initial signature, we'll do this. First.
Yeah, but I need initial.
Implement. Do. Assistance, help, ameliorate, fix. If that shows up in a document, we got some problems, right? Remunerate. Pay. The last one's fun just because of the way you say the word. Masticate. It means to chew. Okay, that's what that word means. Know your audience. So style is important. You're not going to write the same way that you would in a peer-reviewed journal that you would in a blog. In fact, I sometimes get criticized when I write stuff for ISSA Journal, and Tom will tell me this is not your blog. Right? Refine it back a little bit. Remember your audience. Know who you're talking to. Don't sound pretentious. One of the easiest tricks you can do, take something you've read and read it aloud. Does anybody here do that? Is it beneficial?
Usually.
It is. It will help you find the miss, because especially when you talk about the revision that you go, revision, and you miss something, like maybe a there for a there, or something like that. When you're reading it out loud and you're paying attention, you'll catch those things. And most importantly, entertain your readers. If you're writing dry stuff, you have to make it fun. If people, in fact, if you look at some of the old issues of the ISSA Journal, there was kind of this inside joke for a while. They would put my column opposite the lawyer guy. And mine was first. So they'd read mine, and they get to like 2 sentences, and the lawyer guys say, flip the page, right? Got to be entertaining. Here's a little checklist for you, okay? Did you use spell check? Don't just look for the red squigglies. Did you use spell check? Did you use a grammar check? It's F7, I believe. Did you read the paper aloud? Are you using consistent style, fonts, and sizes? There should not be documents that come across professionally that have multiple fonts, multiple sizes, unless you're talking about headings, multiple styles. It should be consistent. Again, people judge a book by their cover. If they don't think you took enough time to make it look right subconsciously, they're going to rate you lower. In my consulting days, I was able to win proposals, win big gigs, just on the merit of the proposal. We were moved up because the other ones weren't so great. Okay? Are you using any automatic fields in Word? Anybody ever looked at a PDF where they're looking at the table of contents and it says this reference not defined? Or even in the middle of a document, you said, you're reading a sentence and there should be a number there and it says this reference not defined. You can select all and hit, I believe, F9 in Word, and that will automatically update any of those automatic fields. Do that before you do anything, before you do the final edits. And then are the graphics consistent and clean? Again, this goes to that style thing. If you're pulling from a lot of different areas, you should make sure they have similar colors, similar styles, similar shadows, all those types of things. Yep. So what did we learn? Simplicity and brevity. Right? Simple. Know your audience. You have to know who you're talking to, and you have to write for them. You don't need many tools to succeed, right? Dictionary, style guide, and books on writing, which you probably already can read, right? Use a checklist. I'm a pilot. I was had a friend of mine who told me, she said that I got in this guy's plane, and the first thing he did is he starts whipping out these checklists, and I got really nervous because does he not know how to fly this plane? Why does he have this checklist? I'm like, no. That's the sign of a really good pilot, because you want to make sure the engineers say this is how you operate the aircraft. Don't rely on this brain matter, especially after that. Okay, you can't do that while flying, by the way. But follow the checklist. Here's my endearing thing to you guys. I travel a lot. I have a laminated checklist for when I travel. It includes things like socks. And it says, match pants, not shoes. Ties, cufflinks, passport, power converter. I have only had 2 instances in my entire career once I made that checklist where I had a mistake. And it was because I had a little too many of these when I was packing. Okay? Rewrite until it's great, however you have a deadline. You can't sit here and rewrite forever. But you should go back and look, and you should make it great. Because remember, people judge a book by their cover, and your name's on it. And then finally, start writing today. Now, here are some good resources. So the Chicago Manual Style, that's this orange one right here. William Zinsser on Writing Well, that is this one. It's a fantastic book. There's also one, June Casagrande wrote a book called Grammar Snobs Are Great Big Meanies, and it's very funny. It's a very entertaining book. Here's a podcast as well, Grammar Girl Podcast. And now I have to figure out how we're going to do the books.
Here you go.
Does anybody have like business cards or something, or something we can? I mean, I don't want to like spin somebody around and say point. Does anybody want one of these?
Yes.
Does everybody want one? Okay.
Somebody use an incorrect grammar.
Oh, no, it's fun. It's actually very funny when I read it.
You know what? Write something out on a piece of paper, number 1 to 10, whatever.
Is that what it's for?
What's that?
Okay.
Oh, I don't have those though. All right. So we'll just come up with a little quiz here. That's all right. So wow, I got $3. Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah. So all right, can anybody name? We talked about the Chicago manual style. There are 2 other very prevalent ones. Can somebody name what those are, or name one of them? AP.
The MLS?
MLS. MLA.
MLA, yeah.
And what's the other one? Or is there another one? I said 2.
You said 2.
Those are the people who need those books the least.
No, I want a fun book on this topic. I've got the other one.
When no one knows it.
Okay.
Help a geek out, come on.
What is an M dash?
Yeah, right. Okay.
You can't answer. You already got one.
Emphasized something.
It's a 1 mile run.
Okay. I know you know. This is on your Amazon list. I'll get it to you for Christmas. Let me think here.
Somebody correct.
All right, you guys are Dallas people, right?
Yeah.
What was the
No.
other paper before the Dallas Morning News? So there was 2 papers.
Tribune?
Dallas Times Herald?
Times Herald.
Yep.
There you go.
Thank you very much.
Chunk it at 'em.
All right, now that man deserves it.
All right. Yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed it. That book, by the way, is $10. Those 3 copies I bought at a local Barnes & Noble.
Wow.
In Highland Village. You can get that book. It's called The Elements of Fucking Style. It's absolutely fantastic. It takes all of the really silly, boring examples out of here and makes them fun. By talking about crack deals in jail and all kinds of stuff. Okay?
Thank you.
And there's also a lot of swearing in it, so that's really fun too. So thank you, everybody.
Hey, thank